In the last stream, we were working our way towards automating, ideally, the production of all of the components of the advanced Technium Ingots. We didn't get particularly far. We've really so far only automated crushed deep slate, basic Technium, and redstone, and that's because last episode we were also working on unlocking this biogenerator here to allow us to very quickly and easily set up power generation that I think is going to be very scalable into the future and is going to allow us to power most of what we have here, I think, for quite a while going forward. Now that that is ready to go, and now that we do have the option of scaling that up if we need even more than the 320 redstone flux per tick that we're generating currently, I want to pivot my focus over to fully automating the production of advanced Technium Ingots today. Now, to do that, we of course need to get all of these resources automated, and we need to pump them into the advanced Technium machine here. Between streams, I was kind of contemplating how we wanted to do things going forward, because right now, we are kind of creating each resource that we need at the point at which it's needed, right? So we've got multiple different cobblestone miners placed down, we've got multiple different stone miners placed down. As we go forward and as the production lines get more and more complex, that becomes kind of difficult to keep up. And it also is a system that makes it very difficult to increase the production of any given resource. Because, for example, right now, we are making copper right now and sending it around to our basic Technium machine frame, but we also need to use copper in the production of bronze over here to automate the production of advanced Technium ingots. So we have a question. Do we want to bring the copper that's already being made and pipe it around over to the kiln brick here to allow us to automate bronze, or do we set up yet another system that generates copper right here and feed that around into the kiln brick, and do we do that every time we need copper going forward? I don't think either of those are particularly good solutions. I think a better solution is going to be to try and centralize the production of copper somewhere and then send that copper where it needs to go from that one centralized location. That way we can take the copper production kind of away from where it is right now, move it to somewhere where it's very easy to expand when we need more of it, and then just send items to where they need to go after the fact. So between episodes, I have become aware of a pretty nifty technique for allowing us to do this. Initially, my plan was going to be to use the XNet mod, which we did unlock by completing the Deep Slate quest line. You'll see down here, there is a quest to make the controller from XNet. However, it turns out that we can do something very similar with inventory connectors and logistical sorters. So the idea here is that if we put down an inventory connector, of course, next to some inventory cable, we can then use the logistical sorter to extract any item that is in any of the inventories connected to our Tom's Simple Storage network. So for example, if we wanted to take the tin that's right here and send it around into one of these alloy kilns to automate the production of bronze, what we can do is we can go ahead and inside of this logistical sorter, we can say new filter, item stack, tin, and save. By default, the logistical sorter is set to false on eject unfiltered. So by default, it's not going to pull out anything that's not added to the filter unless you change this to on. So now if we add tin to the filter and we run a pipe, let's say round over to here, that's going to go ahead and begin extracting the tin from that storage drawer over there, round through the network into the alloy kiln. And so essentially what I think we're going to do is kind of almost tear down a fair bit of what we have currently and move stuff around so that we have our resources being generated in kind of one central location, and then we can send those resources using these logistical transporters to wherever they need to go. These are also very highly customizable as well. Of course, if we wanted to, as we've seen previously, we can change the color on the pipe. So we could say, for example, do something like this, and we could have this pipe be green and this pipe be black. And now if we filter the tin to green, it's only going to go to the green inventories. It's never going to go over to here, even though this is connected. We can also, in here, if we turn size mode on, we can change the number of items that are moved at a time. By default, it sends a full stack of tin every time, which is not a big problem for this specific setup here. But if we wanted to, we could change the maximum here to 1 and click save. And now instead of sending 64 tin, it will send 1 tin multiple times until the alloy kiln here is full. Again, not massively useful for this particular setup, but for other setups that could be very useful. And it does help if you actually do turn size mode on and save. So now if I take this out, we should see, there we go, 64 individual pieces of tin moving through round to the alloy kiln. And you can even change the minimum as well. So right now we've set the max to 1. If we wanted to, we could leave the max at 64 and change the minimum to, say, 32, and that way it wouldn't actually extract unless we had at least 32 tin in the system, which could also be a useful way of just making sure we never use all of the tin. So if we ever end up with less than 32, it's going to leave that in the system. It's not going to send it around to be made into tin ingots. And so using this, I think we can set up a very powerful system where we centralize all of our resource production, and then we can just send that out to wherever it's needed. And the big benefit of that, as I've mentioned, is that we can then scale up whatever resource production it is that we need in that one centralized location without having to upgrade things everywhere around the base. It means that we don't have to have 4 different cobblestone miners spread out all over the place. We can have one centralized tower of cobblestone miners and then just send the cobblestone to where it needs to go. And that also means that if we, for example, have one miner like this one that is currently not doing anything, right? It's not using all the cobblestone it's making. That is not going to be wasted. It's still going to be usable wherever we're not producing enough cobblestone at any given moment in time. And so what we're going to do here, I think, is I'm going to do a bit of base redesign work as well, because I'm not massively happy currently with our just giant slab of dark oak that we have at the moment. And over here, as we saw previously, in this pack, we can just take regular stone, and if we put this into the stone cutter, it gives us basically all of these different colors of stone and all these different colors of brick and all these different patterns that we can choose from. And so I'm probably going to do some testing with, the different colors and combinations that we have here. And I think I'm going to set up a new platform, and I'm going to move all of my miners to that platform. So I think we're going to have kind of like one area for miners where we make the cobblestone, the stone, the clay, the sand, the gravel, etc. We'll then probably have another section where we produce the ingots, so the tin, the iron, the aluminum, the silver, the lead, the nickel, everything that we're generating currently. And then we might even have yet other platforms where we actually bring everything together for the basic Technium. The Twitch chat has pointed out here that we can make the builder's generator. This should make our lives a lot easier in terms of getting a lot of whatever block it is we want for our base design here, because if we press U, it says the resource generator, which is now called the builder's generator, is a 1-block solution to produce certain blocks. The top slot is the block you want, and the right slot is for speed upgrade. So it looks like if we put this down in here, we could, for example, pick a block. For now, we'll just go with one of these, like black bricks. And if we wanted to get black bricks, we could then put those in, and this will just slowly but surely make those black bricks. And it looks like we can also then use the same speed upgrades that we've been using for our other machines to make that a fair bit faster. It unfortunately doesn't work with regular stone, so if you put regular stone in there, it doesn't work. That would make sense, because then you wouldn't need the miners. But for decorative blocks, it looks like this totally does work and should make it a fair bit easier for us to get a large quantity of whatever block it is we want to kind of build our base out of. And of course, we could make multiple of these as well. They're really not that expensive to make. Also, it turns out that the speed upgrades for this aren't these speed upgrades. These are different speed upgrades. I'll put that away. I'm sure we can use that in a cloche in the future. But again, if you press U on this, there is a temp for speed blocks. These are the speed blocks that we have. By default, it produces 1 block every 11 seconds. But if you add one of these blocks into the speed slot, it will change the speed at which things are produced. The cheapest upgrade is the fence. That takes us from 220 ticks down to 210 ticks, so not a massive increase in speed. And then all the way at the fastest end, you can do a beacon, which will take it all the way down to 20 ticks. I think for us, obsidian might be like one of the highest tier blocks that we have available to us. So if I do this, that does increase the production and essentially makes this just over twice as fast as it was previously. We have also upgraded the pack to the latest version, and so now the compressed blast furnaces here and the compressed regular furnaces are not only able to smelt multiple items at a time, but as you can see here, they are also just faster than a regular furnace as well. And so I do also think here it could be worth taking this compressed blast furnace that we have and trying to upgrade it further, because it's also been made cheaper. Now it only requires 4 blast furnaces to make 1 compressed blast furnace, and then 4 of the compressed blast furnaces to make a double compressed, and then you could even go as far as a triple compressed. And so I don't think it would be impossible here for us to get, 4 more of these. That's going to get us 1 more compressed. I guess we'd want to get 12 so we could try and get up to the double compressed. Let me see if I can't make that happen. So now here, once we have 4 compressed blast furnaces, we can throw that back in and get our double compressed blast furnace. I am kind of tempted to try and get the triple compressed blast furnace. That is going to require that we make 4 of these double compressed blast furnaces, but I think it's going to be real fast. I'm also tempted to do the same thing with our double compressed furnace over here. If we can get 4 of those, we can make a triple compressed furnace as well. But if we take this guy, let me see how much faster this is. So if we put some tiny coal in and we put some regular old cobblestone in as well, this should now be able to make the smooth stone from cobblestone way faster. Because again, I think you get an even bigger speed boost with the double compressed versus the single compressed, and it can now do twice as many at once. And so compared to what we had before, which was, just to remind you, this speed right here, this is way faster and can do more at a time, which is going to make our lives way easier going forward in terms of getting things like smoothstone. Okay, so not too long later, and we are in the middle of doing some kind of base design tinkering over here before we start moving stuff over. And I quite like the idea of these kind of circular platforms for our different tiers of Technium machines. So one for basic, one for advanced, one for elite, and one for ultimate. And over here, we kind of started building that out. I've been using my construction sticks to make that happen. But over in the shop over here, the catalog, we do have the option of getting ourselves a building gadget, and we also have the option of getting a copy-paste gadget as well. And initially, I'm going to go with the copy-paste gadget. We might also end up getting a building gadget as well. To use this, we do have to charge it. Thankfully, there is a charger, or charging station, also purchasable inside of the catalog here. And so essentially with the copy paste gadget here, what we can do is we can throw down our charging station, which if you're earlier in the pack, you can just put fuel in here. You don't have to be generating power to buy and use this. But now if we put this in, it's going to start to fill up with charge, which is good, gives us an actual use for our energy right now. And what we should now be able to do is take our copy paste gadget, and if we go to options, controls, and keybinds, and I type in category and building gadgets 2, we want the settings menu, which by default is set to G, but the red brackets there mean it is a conflicted keybind, so we'll change that to just something random, like keypad 6. And so now if I hold down my keybind, it shows us the UI for the copy-paste gadget. And so if I'm not mistaken, the way this works is that we need to put down kind of like 2 anchor blocks that we're going to use to specify the area we want to cover here. So for example, if I put a piece of cobblestone down right here, this is far enough out to where it's going to capture the blocks that are here and here. These cobblestone pieces here were just for building guides. We can get rid of those. And so I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. The other side, I'm going to go further up though. So we went kind of down on the last one. I'm going to go up on this one. And then if I'm not mistaken, what we should then be able to do is we should be able to right click or shift right click on one of these. And then we should be able to right click or shift right click on the other one of these. And now we've specified an area that we want to copy. We might even be able to take the cobblestone out, but to be fair, that's not really going to be too difficult for us. So what we can then do is if we hold down our keybind, we can switch to paste mode. And now you'll see that we have the option of kind of pasting the design that we had. One of the reasons I want to do this is because I do want to build more rings, but I also kind of want to bring this up a little bit. So we're going to have like a center walkway in the middle. And then I like the idea of these being raised up further than I've currently built them. So if we go a few blocks further up here, we can go ahead and do something like this where we right click here. I might bring that down by just 1 block though. Let's do maybe this. And if we have all the items to build it, it builds it. Now, I didn't have all the items to build it, so it didn't build it, which is unfortunate. But over here, we do have multiple now of these builder generators. Some of them are building these white asteroid tiles, and some of them are building these regular white tiles. I quite like the combination of these two. Both of those are acquirable via the stone cutter. One nifty feature here is if you press the numpad key again, you can undo like this. It will take away the blocks. And now that we have the blocks, if we right click again, it should go ahead and actually build the full structure. I say once we have the blocks, it turns out it actually uses even more of this white tile than I thought it did. Again, there's no limit though here on how many times we can undo and redo. Nice. And going forward, we can also use the copy paste gadget for copying, very large structures as well. So in here, we can go back to copy mode. And for example, you can select a very large area. I could shift right click here and you'll see that's a massive area. If I then went to go and right click over here, we could specify like this whole area. I could go ahead, copy that, switch it to paste mode, pick all of this up, and then paste it back down elsewhere, and it will replace down all the blocks in the exact places that they're already in. And so this is just a very powerful tool that's going to be useful for us to have at our disposal going forward, and it's going to make it a lot easier for us to build stuff like this going forward. Now, of course, when we go to place the next circle here on the right-hand side, we do run into a slight problem in that we would have to kind of get the exact right position of this piece of cobblestone to rebuild it if there wasn't an anchor option. So if we hold down the settings key again, we can anchor the visualization, and then from there, you can go to this little settings menu in the bottom right. There might also be a keybind to go straight to the settings menu, but if you click here, you can then use the X, Y, and Z coordinates here to move the blueprint. You can then click confirm, and if you're happy with it, you can right click to confirm where it's going to go. For us, we want this to be at least one block up like that, and then we also want it, yeah, right about there. We actually just want it kind of one block further over in the Z direction like that, and I think that that is perfect. Again, you need to make sure you have all the items. One thing you can do in here, you can click on materials list, and that will show you the items required, and it even tells you if you have enough. So right now, we have enough cobblestone. We don't have enough of the white tiles to build another one of these, but we can now do the same thing again, of course, if we want to build another one kind of further down, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to build 4 of these going forward, because I've been told by the Twitch chat that there are more tiers of Technium than Basic, Advanced, Ultimate, and Elite, but those are the only 4 that we're going to build here in the overworld. Apparently, after that, the multi-block structures have to be built in different dimensions, like the Nether, in order to function. Alright, so we're still working away on the base design here, and we've added some stairs to our setup, and one thing that has been pointed out to me is that we do have the ability in here to purchase glowstone spray. And I believe the idea with this is that we can kind of forego torches going forward, because if I'm not mistaken, these should allow us to spray individual blocks with the spray can, which does have a durability, albeit a fairly large one, and then the blocks that we've sprayed effectively become like torches. They become light up blocks that allow us to light up the area without actually having to put torches down, which I think is going to look real nice. So I'm just going to kind of go around, and as we build out going forward, we're going to put down these spray cans and just kind of right click everywhere to put down these invisible torches, which should make it a lot easier for us to see without having to have torches all over the place. You can also right click again to remove the glowstone if you don't want it in the future. Okay, so way too much time later, we now have a slightly nicer looking base, but a definitively less automated base, especially when it comes to these first 2 tiers of Technium. So I've gone ahead and moved the basic Technium machine and the advanced Technium machine up onto the first 2 circular platforms here. The last 2, of course, waiting for Elite and Ultimate. And I think, ignoring this part of the base over here, which is still as it was, I think we are about ready to kind of re-automate the first tier of basic Technium, but I think in a way that's going to be much more scalable in the future. So what I've done is down here, I've set up some towers of miners, or at least what will eventually become miners. Right now, they're just kind of towers of scaffolding and stone, cobblestone, grout, gravel, sand, and clay. Eventually, though, again, the plan here being the ability to expand in the future, we now have space to add more miners, to get more sand, get more gravel, get more clay online as and when we need it. And the same is kind of true down here. So this is basically the exact same setup that we had before in terms of making iron, aluminum, and tin, but I've tweaked it so that hopefully going forward we can expand this to make more iron, more tin, more aluminum, and now more copper going forward. So over here we have 2 ambient water collectors pumping into 1 water purifier. We now have a dedicated water purifier for each and every line of machinery. So this here is the lineup for iron. It's exactly the same for tin and for aluminum, but the idea here now is that we have 1 purifier. So in theory, if we wanted to, we could run, I believe, 4 rock enrichers simultaneously to make 4 times as much granite, and then over here we could do the same. We could make 4 rock washers, and the plan, by the way, going forward here, if and when we do need more iron, is going to be to stack these. So going forward, we could put down another rock enricher here, another rock washer here, and we actually don't need another compactor because the compactor is very fast, but so going forward, we could double up our iron by just putting down 2 more machines. We could then triple up if we want to do this, and then quadruple up, and then it's only if we wanted to quintuple up that we would then need to get another water purifier and pipe that up to the top, which should be fine. That shouldn't be very difficult for us to do, and we've kind of set this up with enough space vertically here to where we could get a lot of iron in the future should we need to. And of course, as I mentioned, the same is true for the aluminum and for the tin. And then over on the end, I have added copper to this lineup as well. Copper is, of course, much easier. Copper is just one rock washer into one compactor makes the copper. Right now, this isn't working, and that is because we're not sending stone around. And so this is where we actually get to use that setup that we showed earlier with the logistical sorters and with the inventory connectors. So I have run a very long inventory cable from here all the way around over to the corner. We are going to facade all of this up, of course, and that's why I've run it to the corner, so we can run a facade all the way down here, and that runs all the way around to these guys. So this is connected up and is working. What we're now going to do is over here, I've put down 2 pipes here and here. These pipes are to allow us to pump stone around into these rock enrichers for the iron, the aluminum, and the tin, and for the rock washer for the copper, because the copper doesn't actually require a rock enricher. And so really all we should have to do here is kind of connect these together, like so, place down the logistical sorter onto an inventory connector like we did before, and then if we just run some inventory cable over to that, we should be pretty much good to go. Let me quickly grab some more inventory cable. We do have a ton of it in the system, and we also have another pipe here. This pipe is for cobblestone. That cobblestone, of course, is for the cobblestone melter, and so actually, what we could do here is we could move this back a bit. If I'm careful about picking this guy up, we can actually place the inventory connector down here, the logistical sorter here, and we can actually connect this to the same lineup like that. Then in here, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly grab some stone and some cobblestone from the system. And then now back down under here, we are going to go ahead and specify different colors for stone and cobblestone. So let me go and let me configure this with a shift right click. Let's make this like a dark gray for stone, just regular gray, I guess. And then we can do light gray for cobblestone. These obviously don't have to be color coordinated to the color of the blocks. I think it's probably just easier for us if we do color coordinate them in that way. And so now down here, I'm going to say extract cobblestone. So new filter, item stack, cobblestone, and we're going to set that to light gray, like so. Save, and then we'll do the same again. New filter, item stack, stone, this time for regular gray. Save, and now that should begin to extract, as soon as we obviously connect this up, that should extract those items from here and pipe the stone around to all of the devices back here that need stone, all the rock enrichers and the rock washer, and over here it should extract the cobblestone round to the cobblestone miner. Now, currently, I have actually not put down the logistical pipes required here to extract the cobblestone from these miners and connect it to these drawers, and we also don't have a connector connecting this drawer up to the system. We need another inventory connector over here to actually connect all that together. But once that is connected, this should just kind of work and should start sending the cobblestone from here round to here. It should start sending the stone that we're generating over here round between these guys. And of course, it's not a massive deal here because the cobblestone is not that far away. We could have just piped it, but it becomes even more useful for setups up here, because up here we have the coal coke setup over here. So we have just one cloche now, because I think one cloche is enough to run both of these. Before we had one making wood for the coke oven and one making wood for the solidifier. I don't think that's necessary. Worst case scenario, we might have to put some speed upgrades in here, but I think one cloche with the no other drops upgrade is the better way to go about it. This setup otherwise is the exact same. We have the creosote going into the solidifier. Now it's going into a drawer that holds the treated wood. Again, we're going to connect this up with an inventory connector to give our system access to it. And then over here, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to get another inventory connector. In fact, let me see if I can't make a couple more of these inventory connectors, because we do need many of them here. That gets us 4 of those inventory connectors. And so, of course, over here, we're going to do the exact same thing where we're going to take another logistical sorter, and over here, we're going to use that to export all of the items that we want up and into the basic Technium machine. So let me go ahead and put down the inventory connector here. And I think you might be able to do this. I actually don't know if we need a cable or not between the logistical sorter and the basic Technium machine. Like, we might need a pipe there, potentially. But in here, we can go ahead and just add new filters to this. We can get rid of the tin filter that was from earlier, but we can add new filters to this to tell it to export all of these items from wherever they are in the base round to here. And again, as I mentioned right at the start of the episode, the benefit here is that now, over here, for example, we have this leather being made. If we wanted to expand this, we could go ahead and put down, 4, 8, 12, really as many of these cloches as we want. We could make as many compactors as we want, and we could really increase the amount of leather that we need without having to have it anywhere near to the basic Technium machine frame. And the same is also true of everything else. Over here, we have more of the controllers and solidifiers. This one's making glass, this one's making mini coal, this is making the stone gears, this one's making the copper rods, this one will be making the black bricks, and this one here is going to make the flint. And again, you guessed it here, the idea is basically the same if we get another logistical sorter. Let me also grab some logistical pipes. Over here, we're going to take another inventory connector. We're going to put that inventory connector down under here. First of all, I'm going to do something like, I want to put this here. So I guess we probably want to break this pipe first, which is easier done with the wrench. And then if we do this and this, that does automatically switch to being the right way around, which is very nice. We can then do that. And now we can do the exact same thing we just did with all of these, because up here we need to send sand. So again, if we swap our wrench out of wrench mode, we can change this to, let's say, yellow as our sand color of choice, like so. And then down here, we can go ahead and add new filter, item stack, and it turns out you can actually drag from JEI the item you want. So let's say we drag just regular old Minecraft sand like this, and we select the color yellow, save. That's now going to extract sand from the system and pipe it around to here. Chat is right here. There is a slight problem with this. The problem with this is that we are going to have to tweak this ever so slightly. It's not a massive change, but I think basically all we have to do is go one block higher with the pipes, because the colored pipes do stop items from passing down. So for example, let me quickly disconnect that. Right then we had like a black pipe in the way. What we need to do is something like this. This doesn't strictly need to be disconnected, but we're going to disconnect that anyway. So now that's going to go into here because this is yellow, and as we go forward we're going to change the color of all of these. Right now it is putting stuff into all of them, which of course is not ideal, but that's only because these currently are all set to have no color. Let me quickly just like disconnect that so it doesn't end up making too much sand everywhere. It looks like we are fine, but here for example, this one is for coal. Let's go ahead and set that to black. This one is for stone. Let's go ahead and set that to, let's say, gray again, because it's part of a different network. It doesn't matter that it's the same color. This one can be set to orange because this is for the copper. And then down here, we could set this one to, let's say, purple. That's going to be our grout color. And then finally over here, we can go with magenta for gravel. And so now if I reconnect that again, that should no longer be able to send the sand into any of the other controllers, because these controllers are all filtered for different colors. And all we need to do now is go through and add those colors to our logistical sorter down here, and then once those items are available in the system, those items will get sent around continuously to all of these, and again, it just allows us in the future to scale up nicely. For these miners as well, the pipe connector really does make quick work of this. So with the logistical transporters in our offhand, we can shift right click on the drawer that we're going to send all the items to, and then up at the top here, I've put down where eventually we're going to have our final miner. We can also go shift right click there, shift right click, place pipes, and it puts those pipes down very quickly for us. And so it really shouldn't take us very long at all here to just go ahead and put down like all of these pipes. And in the most recent update to the pack, the pipe connector here does now also work with the inventory cable as well from Tom's storage mod. And so we did also use that for running this long cable all the way along there. It also makes it way faster because it will break the blocks for you. So if you're running a pipe through the ground, the pipe connector will pick those blocks up and just drop them onto the floor. And so you don't have to go through and manually break every single block to then lay the pipes in the ground, which is good. In fact, we could probably do the same thing right about here, because we need to put inventory connectors onto all of these. And so what we could do is we could go ahead and say that I want my pipe, if we swap this out for the inventory cable, we can shift right click here, and we can go all the way back to where we actually do have a pipe, which is here, like that. And then right now the depth is not right, but you can use your shift and scroll to bring that up, like so. And we want it actually in the ground. Shift right click, place pipes. It breaks all the blocks, place all of the pipes down. And then I guess for us, all we would have to do here is now go ahead and break a few of these to replace down the inventory connector. But I do think it's way faster to go ahead and break, like, let's say this pipe here, than having to break all of the white tiles manually and then also go ahead and place down all the inventory cables as well. And so now I've gone ahead and added all of those items to the filter using all of the different colors, and all of those items are making their way to their respective inventories over here, and I believe everything is being produced. I've also gone ahead and thrown down inventory connectors under all of these, We could have put more drawers down to connect them up. Unfortunately, the trim doesn't work for connecting these up, but the inventory connectors are really not too expensive, so I wasn't really too worried about using multiple of them. I've also thrown some down over here and over here to get everything connected. Of course, eventually we're going to put down a ton of facades, and it's all going to look much cleaner. The final little bit of cable laying that we need to do is we do need to make some more of these inventory cables, because we need to run these inventory cables, and I'm going to keep making even more of these Tom's cores because we're burning through them, making all these cables and all of the inventory connectors. But the final little bit of cabling that we need to do is running a cable over to this inventory connector over here. At a certain point, we should then be able to use the inventory connector. Let me try going from like here to maybe over here, like that. That looks like it's totally going to work. Place pipes. And then we want to go from here round and over to maybe like here. And that also kind of looks like it's going to work. I've kind of gone one block too far in, like it's centered on the stairs, it's just not centered on the miner there, but that's actually fine. Place pipes. Nice. So that should now be connected. And so over here, this should be ready to go. Now, I actually don't know if we need to filter any of this, because the basic Technium machine can only accept these items. For example, if I take these stone gears out and try and put the saplings in, it just doesn't work, like they can't go in there. So I'm interested to see if I just turn eject unfiltered items to on, if that just ejects items that can fit in here. It looks like it totally does. It just fills up the basic Technium machine with the items that we have that fit into those slots. Chat is also right that it's quite possible that it might also be the case that we could potentially just put a pipe here. Let me give that a try as well. If I just do this and this, that also might just work, because there are only certain items that can actually be sent into here. And so now it's pulling all of the things that we have from all of the different areas of the base and sending them around into this basic Technium machine. And we have the ability going forward to expand the production of any of these to make it all much, much faster. Speaking of faster, one thing we could also do here is we could also look at upgrading this pipe to the advanced logistical transporter, which would allow it, I believe, to extract more items. You'll see here the basic logistical transporter can only move 2 items per second, and so you'll see it's doing a lot of individual items here, and it moves them at a speed of 1 meter per second, whereas the upgraded advanced logistical transporter that just requires 1 infused alloy, which we did make previously, can move 32 items per second, and it moves them at a speed of 2 meters per second. So it moves them twice as fast through the pipe, and it can move a ton more as well. It looks like we are kind of a little low on mini coal over here. We've got 245 mini coal available there, so I'm actually not quite sure why it's not extracting that mini coal and putting it in here. Never mind, I think the problem is that I did not actually connect these inventory connectors up. If we look at them, you'll see the only items available are the 6 inventories that are here, so these are all connected together. All we need to do is something like this to connect those to everything else. So now if I look at this, it should have access to 55 inventories, and over here we should see, yeah, there we go, the mini coal making its way in. Cool. I don't think at the moment we have a spare infused alloy. We don't. We could, though, go ahead and grab a metallurgic infuser, put that down where our power is, which for now is still over here, and then if we just quickly grab 1 redstone and 1 copper, we should be able to upgrade 8 pipes and see if that extra speed is helpful to us. We do appear to be out of copper, which is maybe to be expected. Let me go and check in a second to see if the copper setup downstairs is working as intended. For now, let's also do that so that can get working on that upgrade for our pipes. Down here, is this working? This is not working. That could be due to a lack of stone, or it could be due to a misclick earlier, or I put the wrong item into a storage drawer, which has completely backed up the entire system, thus preventing any stone from being produced at all. One thing I should do that I haven't done here is I should go ahead and grab my drawer key and just make sure that all of the drawers around the base are locked to the specific resource that we want them to produce, so that going forward, there's no chance of like any other item making its way into those drawers, like this one right here, which has managed to end up with dark oak planks. That's much more likely to happen, of course, with the inventory connectors, because if the inventory is empty, the inventory connector then sees it as an inventory that it can put stuff into, and if it thinks it can put stuff in there, it will do that. It'll put stuff in as a way of storing things for us, which sometimes is useful, but of course, sometimes very much so isn't. So I do need to make sure that these are all locked to whatever it is that we want them to store. Back over here, the infused alloy is done, and so we should be able to use that to upgrade these pipes, like so. And let's see just how fast these are compared to our pre-existing pipes. So if I swap this out like this, we can then, of course, set that to extract, like so. And that's now moving the items much faster, and it's moving more items at a time as well. And so we should hopefully see all of these, yeah, look at that, back up straight away with all of the resources we have. We don't quite have enough copper just yet, but the copper should now, with our recent changes and all of our draw lockings, be being made. And it totally is. Look at that. We're sending water around, we're making the copper pieces, they're being compacted, and they're being sent around to be melted. Right now, we are doing, I think, technically half as much copper as we were previously, because previously we had 2 rock washers and 2 compactors working on the job. But again, this is, I think, a much more scalable system than we had previously. And so now if we wanted to, we could go ahead and make another rock washer, because we have all of this stuff connected. And again, like all of our glass now is available in the system, which it wasn't previously. It was all kind of a bit further away. We can now craft things like the rock washer more easily than we could previously, and we can just do a quick /back. Down here, we can throw another rock washer down like this. We can put down another basic logistical pipe right about here. We don't actually need to filter this pipe, I don't think, to the specific color because of the fact that this is already filtered to gray. I think that does mean that that should allow the stone through. It totally does. And that should make its way in. It totally does. One thing we do need to do is we do need to go ahead and grab the second copper focus that we do have in the system, and we do need to place it into here. But with that, we should be basically good to go. We can do this to give it water, and then we can just go ahead and extract from here down directly into the same pipe that we are feeding into this compactor here, because again, the compactor is very, very fast. If we look at this, it takes 10 ticks to compact these, whereas over here, it takes, I believe, 100 ticks to actually turn the stone into a copper ore piece. So you can run like 10 of these before you would need to get another compactor for copper. And yeah, we can now scale that, of course, kind of almost infinitely going up. We might need to add more ambient water collectors. We might eventually need to add more compactors, but I think this is now much more scalable going forward. Same's true for the miners. You know, we've got the ability to go up to 5 on each of these. Of course, in the not so distant future, we're also going to look at getting advanced miners, which can then double the amount that we can produce from these again. And if we wanted to, there's still a ton more space down here to take that even further. And so now what we need to do is we need to do the exact same thing, but for advanced technium. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of tear this platform here down, and we're going to move all of this stuff down onto this platform, probably kind of around about here, somewhat in line with the advanced technium setup, and do the same thing we've just done for basic technium, but for advanced technium. All right, so again, a very long time later, and we are getting somewhere when it comes to automating the production of advanced technium. So over here, I've replaced down my 2 alloy kilns. We're going to have one of these producing molten obsidian and one of them producing bronze. We'll come back to those. Over here, we have our little charcoal production system. This is now hooked up via an inventory connector, so everything in the base has access to it, including like this thing over here that we set up earlier, producing the mini coal. So some of that charcoal can go to there if it needs to. Over here, we have the redstone production. The actual setup here is the exact same as before. It is just tweaked to use the logistical transporter. So what I've done here, I've tweaked it in such a way that now it shouldn't ever clog, whereas our previous design was able to clog. So right now we have one improved blast furnace that is producing the salt and the glass as a byproduct. We are going to run into a problem when this fully backs up. So we do need to look at unlocking void upgrades as soon as possible so we can delete any excess glass shards. For now though, there's an inventory connector beneath the salt, and then there's actually another inventory connector next to that inventory connector. And then here, we're extracting that salt, but filtering it to white so that it can only go into this improved blast furnace. It can't possibly go back into the first improved blast furnace. This one right here is filtered to sand, which is yellow. And then we also have charcoal filtered twice, one for yellow, one for white, so that both of these can get the charcoal they need. Here we have another pipe that's also set to white. It could also have been yellow to feed the charcoal into this furnace. So the salt goes around, gets turned into the burnt redstone. The burnt redstone is then, of course, washed in the rock washer to become the redstone ore piece. That redstone ore piece is then smelted in this furnace and pumped into the drawer. So redstone, automated as it was before. Over here in the center, we have our biogenerator. Again, exactly the same as it was before. Nothing different there. And on our bottom platform, we have a few new setups. So over here, we have now a dedicated setup for making crushed basalt. So we have 2 blast furnaces, just like before. This time we're receiving the stone via a logistical sorter, same with charcoal. No filter required here because they're both doing the same job, so the stone is sent to both of them. The deep slate is made and then sent round to the crusher. The crusher, when it gets power, will get turned into crushed deep slate, which is connected to an inventory connector, which will then allow us to send that crushed deep slate round over to here. So I have made a second crusher. We're going to export the deep slate to these 3 rock washers, of course, so that we can make the silver, the lead, and the nickel pieces. Those are going to be compacted. Those are then going to be sent to the second crusher. Those are then going to get outputted to this 2x2 drawer, which for now is the same as before. It's not going to get any more crushed deep slate, but it doesn't hurt to have it there. And then we're going to send those round into these 3 different collectors, which are all filtered with different colors to receive the different colors of dust. Those will then get smelted and placed into their respective drawers, and they are then available to the system. Back up on the surface, we have a very similar system here to what we set up over here, where we have aluminum gears, nickel rods, and silver plates being made. Again, the system is basically the same. We just set them all to different color filters. The cobblestone is going to the melter to make lava for the tanks, and then all the rest of them receiving the aluminum, the nickel, and the silver, and turning those into their respective gears, rods, and plates. Over here, we have another inventory connector with one of our advanced logistical transporters. All we need to do is set that to extract, like so, and that should start to receive all of the items that we already have available to us in our system. Now, of course, there are a few items here that we have yet to actually produce automatically. By the looks of it, we have most of these actually, and look at that, it might actually make some advanced technium. I think we're just missing the bronze block there, and that would actually start to work, which is kind of crazy. It looks like the redstone might not be connected, actually, because that does not seem to be working. It is not connected because it does not have an inventory connector. We've made approximately 100 of these today, thankfully. They are very easy to make, so we can just quickly do one of these. Fantastic. And that should start filling that redstone up as well. Cool. So now there are, I think, 4 things, maybe 5 things left that we haven't fully automated. The first thing is anything to do with power, because right now our power is being generated right here, but it's not being sent anywhere. And so one of the first things I'm going to do here is craft up some basic universal cable. I'll take like a stack if I can make it, which we totally can, because we do also, by the way, now have steel automated as well down here. This is the final blast furnace that we have set up. This, again, logistical sorter pulling iron from over there and charcoal from the system up on the surface to produce slag and steel automatically. Again, still a lot of facades needed. I did go ahead and set up 2 more cloches over here, one to make the red dandelions and one to make the yellow dandelions. Initially, I was using the grass again like we did before, but I think in the long run, it's going to make sense to have these just here because they are the 2 that are needed the most to make all of those facades. And as you can see, we have a lot of facades that we need to make. Either way, now that we have the basic universal cable, we can begin to extract power from our biogenerator and kind of send it around the base to where it needs to go. And I'm going to do that in a very similar way to what we've done with the storage cable, in that I think I'm going to run a cable down one of the corners like this, which again, eventually we are going to cover with facades. And we need to run this cable from the biogenerator up there all the way around to this crusher right here. So for this, I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go across, down, and we'll run it in the floor and cover it with facades. We'll, of course, run that around and connect it up over here. And then we'll do the same thing from there. We'll kind of continue that all the way across and around to this crusher over here, which also needs the exact same thing. Do something like that, break a hole in the floor, and run that cable all the way around to there. And then after that, I think the only other thing that needs power is the alloy kiln, because that's really going to depend on whether or not we want to craft the bronze blocks in block form. Because up until now, we've been using this recipe right here with copper ingots and tin ingots to make bronze ingots, but you can use this recipe right here to use copper blocks and tin blocks to make bronze blocks, which is faster. It does take longer to do one craft, but you get 4 blocks at a time as opposed to 4 ingots, and so it is quicker to do it this way, so I might also run some universal cable up and into here. And I did forget one more item, the freezer over here, which we are going to get going, does also require power as well. Speaking of the freezer, for that, there is actually a little bit of research that I want to do. I mentioned it at the end of the last episode, but in the basic research tier, there is this crafter tier 1. For that, I do need 8 basic research and 8 crafting tables. I do think we have 8 basic research, we do, and we should very easily be able to make 8 crafting tables with 32 planks, boom and boom. And then over in here, if we do this and this, that should get us the crafter blueprint, which should then allow us to fairly easily make these tier 1 crafters using just more crafting tables. And I've been told that these crafters don't require any power. Not that that would matter too much because we do have the power available to us now, but that should allow us to fairly easily begin to craft things like these snow balls into snow blocks. Later on down the line, we could look at getting something like a compacting drawer, but the compacting drawers are locked behind more advanced Technium research that we currently don't have the ability to make. And so for the time being, we are going to use the basic crafter for snowballs, and I might even look at using another one of these crafters for the crafting of copper and tin into block form as well. Over here, the way this is going to work is that we're going to use this logistical sorter to send clay around into the freezer. So this is the final destination. That's where we're going to have our blocks of snow. Let me quickly grab some out of here so that we can lock this drawer to snow blocks, like so. We're then going to extract from the crafter, like this. In here, all we need to do is we need to grab some snowballs, which we do have in this drawer. So if I take 4 snowballs, in here, you can select a recipe, and then you can put the recipe in on the right, click apply, and that's going to save that recipe so that now when we set this to extract, like so, that's going to put the snowballs in, and the crafter should craft it into snow blocks. Nice. From there, we can set this to extract, and that's going to automate that craft. The only thing left for us to do, of course, is to actually take the freezer, which we are going to have to give power, so we'll run that down into the ground, and we just need to pipe the clay into that freezer. And of course, we might actually need a second crafter here potentially, because this freezer does require the clay in ball form. And right now, we only have the clay available in block form, or at least that's how it's being generated automatically. There is an option that we have here to do this all within one crafter, because you may have noticed that the crafter here does have 2 recipe slots. And so what we could do actually, if we wanted to, if I reorganize this a little bit, we could send the clay around into the crafter here, and it is capable of doing 2 crafts at once. Essentially, all we'd have to do is double click here to select the recipe, teach it the recipe that turns clay blocks into clay balls, like so. Then we can put the clay blocks in, and that's going to craft clay balls. Perfect. One thing we do need to do here is we do need to make sure that we lock the inside of this inventory to make sure that there's always space for both clay and snow blocks. The way that we do that is by putting items in and then clicking the Remember Current Items in Internal and External Buffers button. Doing that locks these slots here to clay and snow respectively, meaning that even if we did somehow fill this with clay, there's still space to craft snow. You can do the same on the internal buffer as well here. If I go ahead and turn this to on to activate, what we should be able to do is kind of temporarily do something like this, and very slowly get some snowballs. We can then, in here, we can allocate like half of these slots to clay, and if you imagine that this cobblestone is snow, we could also allocate these to snowballs, click remember, and then going forward, there is always going to be space for both clay and snowballs inside of this crafter. From there, all we would have to do is use our logistical sorter to send the snow blocks down to the snow drawer and to send the clay balls round to the freezer. The freezer would be, let's say, right about here, and then we would, of course, extract from that freezer, making sure that doesn't connect up into there, because that's going to produce the snow, which we then want to craft down. Once we have 13 snowballs here, we can actually kind of fully make this work. So over here, let's place down the freezer, like that. Let's set you to extract. So that's going to pull out the snowballs when they're done, put them up in here. In here, I'm going to click forget the layout, and then I'm going to redo the layout. So we're going to do clay blocks and clay balls, like this. Click remember. So now that is fully locked, which is good. We can now go ahead and turn this back to ignored, so it does the crafts we want it to do. And over here, let's set you to white for the snow blocks, and let's set you to maybe light blue for the clay. Then in here, we can go new filter, item stack. We can go snow blocks are going to go to white, save, new filter, item stack. We're going to go to light blue with the clay balls. Save. Cool. And so now that should be able to auto-craft both the snow blocks and the clay balls. And as soon as we get power to this freezer, which again we're going to do through the floor, this should be snow automated, and all we would have to do is throw down yet another inventory connector, and we should be good to go. And a lot of pipe placing later, I believe that we are now cooking when it comes to power. So you need to be in there, definitely. Let me lock that as well to make sure that's connected. So now the crushed deep slate is being made again, which is good. Over here, we just need to export that crushed deep slate, which is going to just require one more logistical transporter with another inventory connector down here so that we can pump the crushed deep slate into these rock washers. So just as before, inventory connector, logistical sorter, new filter, item stack. This time we're going with crushed deep slate, which I did keep calling basalt earlier, but deep slate is correct. And we do actually want that to be round robin on. So now that should distribute amongst the 3 rock washers here, which are hopefully going to actively wash what we want to be washed. If we actually go take that out again, hopefully the round robin nature of it might work better there. Although to be fair, we've got a ton of crushed deep slate. So the round robin isn't really something that we should have to worry about because all these are full. Nice. And so finally, that should be all of those back online and now fully automated in a way that is continuous. And so over here, we have almost everything automated. Again, the only things we don't have automated now are the obsidian with the bronze and the palace crystals. So real quick, I'm going to set those up over here. The obsidian should be pretty straightforward. It should just be a case of getting potentially 2 water accumulators with 1 cobblestone melter to make the lava and water fast enough. And then over here, I might go ahead and get a crafter and do the exact same thing we've done here with the 2 recipe slots, 1 for tin, 1 for copper, where we make tin blocks, we make copper blocks, and then we can use this, of course, to make them into bronze. All right, so both of these should now be good to go. We have the ambient water collectors providing water. We do have 1 of our cobblestone melters providing lava, although it looks like we might need more of those potentially, although it really depends on whether or not we are producing the obsidian fast enough. It's possible that the bottleneck is still going to be elsewhere, even if we're not producing this at quite the maximum speed. Over here, we have another one of these crafters, and down here we're using another logistical sorter to send cobblestone to here, and then to send both tin and copper up into here with more colored pipes. And in here, I've done something a little bit different. I've kind of locked a lot of these slots to cobblestone to make sure that we don't end up with, 13 stacks of tin and 13 stacks of copper, as well as 2 stacks of copper blocks and 2 stacks of tin blocks, all just backed up in here doing nothing. So there is still going to be a fair amount of copper and tin in here, because it is still going to back up with 64 blocks of copper and 64 blocks of tin, but hopefully we backed up with like almost the minimum amount that we can possibly back up with. And so really all we should have to do is go ahead and grab another storage drawer and extract the finished blocks of bronze out into that storage drawer. So if we do something like this and we do something like this, we can set that to extract. And if we connect that with another inventory connector, we should then be able to send the blocks of bronze from where they are currently round and into the advanced Technium machine. One slight problem that we are going to run into here is that we need, and also chat is right here, I need to turn this to redstone ignored to make it work. We need to pump the obsidian that is a liquid from here around to that crafter. This is one of those situations where XNet, which I mentioned right at the start of the episode, would come in very useful because XNet is able to move items, fluids, and power all within one cable. For us, we could just run a very long cable, and for the time being, I think that's probably going to be our best option. We almost certainly will look at getting into XNet at some point in the not-so-distant future. For now, though, I did also go ahead and upgrade to the triple compressed blast furnace over here, which is able to very quickly smelt a very large amount of stone into smooth stone, which is fantastic for what we're doing here. And with these basic mechanical pipes, we can, of course, continue to use our pipe connector to very quickly run the molten obsidian from here over to the advanced Technium machine. And there we go. We have made one more advanced Technium ingot successfully because we managed to send that molten obsidian over, and that is now there ready to go. Good. So we can use that, of course, in the future to make some more research bits going forward. We do need one more inventory connector. Let me grab the inventory connector. We can take you, do something like this, and we can place that down over here, of course, to bring that bronze draw online, because we do have 32 more blocks of bronze. The only thing we would need to do here as well is use yet more inventory cable as well to connect that up. Thankfully, the inventory cable, as we've made a ton of it today, is not too difficult. I've continually made even more of these Tom's cores because we've burned through them, but thankfully they are just wood, so it's not really that difficult to burn through them. And so now we should be able to finally get the bronze connected as well. Let's run that from here to here using, you guessed it, our pipe layer. So shift right click, make sure it's at the right spot, shift scroll to bring it up, and shift right click to place pipes. Nice. That should hopefully begin stealing those bronze blocks pretty quickly. What I've done here is I've accidentally broken the connection that goes here. So this is one of the problems with the pipe connector sometimes, is that here I broke this connection that leads this over to here. Now those should get taken, and they have. I actually need to kind of run this down and around. That is kind of my bad. I've been told that if I change the mode in here to A-star pathfinding, it should try and avoid other pipes. It should try and go around pipes where possible, so I should definitely try that in the future, as opposed to just breaking through my pre-existing pipes. Over here, we can go ahead and lock that, and let me quickly grab those blocks again over here to make sure that that does indeed lock to bronze and not to any of the random stuff that we could put in there. And so now, it is just the palace crystals that we don't have automated. Everything else here is automated and ready to go. The palace crystals we are going to have to do next time. They shouldn't be too difficult. We have a bunch of lead. All we have to do is zap that lead with 2 atomic reconstructors. Of course, right now we're using a button to activate this. I think once we automate it, we will probably just leave it in its normal mode, so it can kind of just zap whatever is here. For now, if we do this and we do this, we can very quickly make a ton of palace crystals. They're by far and away the easiest piece to make. And if we put this in like so, that's going to go ahead and make us even more advanced technium. And really now it's just a case of speeding things up. Specifically, I think speeding up the lava production over here to get us more obsidian is going to be a key thing for us to work on. And real quick, let me make like 1 trillion facades to cover up all of these holes. And about 4 or 5 stacks of facades later, the base is looking, I think, a fair bit nicer than it was at the start of the episode, and I do think that we are nice and well set up here for expansion into the future. We have our space ready for the next 2 tiers of Technium, and they're machines that are both also 7x7 multi-blocks, and we've got a ton of space both up here and on the lower platform for whatever automation is needed, and we also have the space to expand out and, you know, make more coke ovens, make more leather. Down here, we have the ability to make a ton more miners. We've got the ability to get a ton more ingots, both going up and going horizontally as well. We have got loads of space, and I think now with the new setup, using the inventory connectors and the logistical sorters, I think it's going to be a lot easier for us to scale up production of anything that we need to scale up in the future. And so next time, chat, we're going to come back. We're going to start by automating the production of the palace crystals to finally automate fully the production of advanced technium. And then after that, we'll also begin looking at the elite tier of the quest line. It looks like we're not too far away from being able to make diamonds, and then after that we can also start looking at what it is that we're going to need if we do want to start making elite technium anytime soon. And hopefully next episode we'll be able to start doing a lot of the research here in the advanced technium tree, because hopefully we'll start to see advanced technium kind of backing up in the way that basic technium is over here as well. Like, we're getting the basic technium in very fast now, faster than we need it, and in fact the advanced technium is also now coming in kind of faster than we need it as well. We've got like 5 advanced technium now, plus some more advanced research, so we should be able to start doing a lot of that research in the next stream. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Techopolis 3 there.